All right.
Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order, and it is 10:04. We need an adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions to Mr. Stevens?
I would like to add in short in-camera session.
Okay. And, on
14 under in camera,
Yeah.
like 14 under in camera.
okay, we signed in camera. Okay. Any other additions to the agenda? If not, I'll ask for a mover.
Wanted to.
Oh, yeah, I had one too, actually. Yeah. 6.2, Business Arising, the G3 tour recap. If there's nothing further, I'll ask for
I make a motion to move the agenda as amended, Mr. Chairman.
okay, thank you, Mr. Nyberg. All in favor? Carried. Okay, adoption of the minutes from the April 27th meeting. I had noticed a couple of things that need a tweak. The one was under land, or at least land rental discussion. It was on the very first note of that where I had mentioned I had received a complaint. This last part of that complaint, it said, its minutes say the present leaser did not get an option to meet the awarded bid. That's actually not correct. The complaint was the present leaser does get an option to meet the awarded bid, but that was not clear in policy. That's what the complaint was. And then the next note that I had made on the minutes was under one acquaintance reports. Anyways, it was under the weed spray, jug recycling. It says in the minutes that the lids need to be on. It should say off.
And excuse me, may I clarify for page 2D1, not easy to find to be changed to not clear?
Not, or not outlined, I guess, maybe not outlined, because I don't even believe it is in the policy, but we're having a future discussion. I mean, and that could be part of discussion notes on that topic, because we had a fairly lengthy discussion, but we also decided that this would come back to a committee of the whole. So maybe that could be one further discussion point that it will be further discussed at a committee of the whole meeting. Mr. Grover?
What about your gopher poison? Do you still accept the empties back?
No, never have.
Okay.
Okay, was there any other errors or omissions to the minutes? If not, I'll ask.
Chairman, if we've gone through that, it looks good to me. If it's good to you.
Okay. So Mr. Nyberg, go.
Oh,
So I'm listening to what Les has to say about the minutes, but if you want to add something to the minutes that wasn't talked about at the meeting, you're changing what happened at the meeting.
Well, we didn't add anything other than, you mean,
it just correct. All we did was correct what the complaint said. The complaint was wrong, written down wrong. The complaint came in that said the current renter had the first right of refusal on it, and in the minutes it said they didn't have it. So the complaint was just written down wrong.
Right. It's not clear in policy, but then to add the point about taking it to committee of the whole, I know we talked about that, but did you talk about that at ASB?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We sent, that's where it was sent.
that's why it's coming up again.
Okay. I just didn't want to change that.
No, I totally understand that. You can't change anything or add anything, but those were the discussions, and there wasn't just two things that got flipped, actually. So if there's no other changes, Mr. Nyberg has moved that the minutes be approved with the corrections. All in favor? And that's carried. Delegations. Barry Yormencio was booked to attend this meeting, and then something came up and he was unable to attend, and that came, or he had notified Quentin just before this agenda package was distributed. So as it turns out, we won't be having a delegation today after all. We will move to reports, 5.1, Ag Service Board Administration Report. Quentin, you want to take that one? Page 6.
So the month of May has been busy with training on our staff we have hired up, UTV, authorized assistants, weed ID and product stewardship trainings are actually happening tomorrow and June 3. We're still watching the avian flu. As the snow geese travel further north, we should start to see our positive birds start to decline in numbers. Wild boar is still a very popular topic, whether by phone or by email, and it is posted on our website now, a little clarification on that. Classroom agriculture program with one school sign up. I was actually supposed to go in last Monday, but I had a bit of a cough, so I did not go in. So that's coming up. Chemical jugs were transferred up to the landfill. And still looking for some agricultural businesses to tour for you members to do 4 to 6 a year. I'm sure you guys have heard a bit about this. We're at Buffalo Lake on the lakeside pathway, cleaning up some of the deadfall, falling some of the trees that are dead so that they don't get blown over in the wind, and making the pathway passable for our equipment so we can get down and do better maintenance. So to do this, we actually borrowed a tree chipper from the town. And all we were chipping was 4-inch or less for branches. Anything larger, we left in 8 to 10 foot pieces just in on the ER and the MR so that they can decay for the trees on that property. So yeah, we're out removing some brush that was controlled in 2021. And roadside vegetation program will concentrate our efforts on the middle third. So that's Township 37-0 or Fen Road up to Township 40-0 or generally speaking Highway 601. Yeah, equipment's ready to go. Skunk traps, magpie traps, cattle scale, pretty popular. River inspections will start soon. Just waiting for the water to reside a little bit. We've planted trees in 2 of 3 locations so far. So at the county shop, we've got 40 acres of hayland to the east of the shop. On the south and along the fence line, we've planted 3 rows of trees for future use in green space and hamlets. And then we were in Botha around the stormwater pond yesterday, the day before, I believe, actually, planting some trees around the green space on the stormwater pond. And we have our 3rd place yet to go is the Bymore School. And pest monitoring will start soon. Diamondback moth traps will be sent out. Shortly to follow will be the Bertha armyworm traps.
Mr. Stevens? I'd just like to reiterate, the pathway is getting cleaned up, progress is being made, but anytime things like that are scheduled, if you could give me a heads up, that would be great, just so I can help with the communication. Secondly, there's one additional question. Some of the trees that got knocked down, they're kind of at an oddball height, like that 4 to 5 inches above grade.
So nobody mows it.
What is the
Not supposed to
plan
mow
there?
the yard.
Kind of created a couple
Yeah.
more tripping hazards.
So we're not done,
Yeah.
but because the chainsaws, if we get any lower, we're hitting rocks.
Yep.
So we're trying to figure out how we can chip those out without damaging teeth, or the other option may be to use the backhoe bucket and pull them out.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, we're not done.
Yeah.
It's a work in progress.
Mr. Grover?
They actually, Rowley Rentals or one of them, they are both of them, I think. Have one that takes them stumps out. I think you can rent. Takes out, chops the stump up. Then you're done with it. If you, I don't know. I've seen them on there and I thought of that right away. I don't know how much a day they would charge for that, but they said that they will. What I get from my neighbors is that the Rowley rental one is new and improved and really takes the stumps out. How many do you have to take out?
50. My fear is wrecking the teeth or the grinder on all the rocks. There's a lot of like basketball size
You better
rocks.
take them out with a hoe.
That's,
And what do you do with the roots then?
well, we'll haul them away and then we'll do some backfill to make it a walkable path.
Okay. You got it under control then.
Yvette, did you have something to add?
For some background, this has been a request of the Community Association at Buffalo Lake for going on 4 years. And we said no every year because the lake is what's pushing the rocks up. And we want to leave VERs as natural as we can. Council then directed us last fall to go ahead and clean up this pathway. We're doing it, and all of a sudden we have some very unhappy people up there.
50% are happy and 50% are mad. So it's hey, welcome to politics.
Hey, we did not just run up there and decide to do this. This was council's direction. We did it after getting constant requests from the community association. And, you know, we've been getting hit pretty hard with some not very nice name calling and a few other things that I'm not very happy about. And I also have my doubts about whether or not it's going to last because we know that it's the lake pushing the rocks up on those paths.
Mr. Chairman, I think that's where Mr. Stevens is getting at, so that he can maybe shield some of that stuff. And what we have talked about recently was that fact sheet, and I see in the county connections, we talked about a fact sheet that we're doing. We just need to do that. We need to set the record straight, get the facts out there, exactly what you said. This is not something that we concocted while we were sitting having a bottle of Jameson out back, because we don't do that. This was something that was thoughtfully put forward and pushed by many residents out there.
And I'll take a bit of a middle ground. I agree that this was driven by concerns from the community. Well, how usable it was, the tripping hazards. I 100% agree that that's what the impetus for this cleanup was. Where I'm coming from is they didn't envision how broad this project would be. They didn't realize the width and that sort of thing. And that's where I see it as my role to help the communication. And that's where I'm hoping to chip in. And I agree with the point about the long-term use and more getting pushed up. And it was discussed using that wood chips as the base to fill in the voids. And I really think that's probably the most economical way. Next spring, when frost pushes up the rock here or there, we can pull out the high ones, backlay the mulch, and it's usable for another year. It's probably our best option.
Mr. Clark?
I guess the point go forward too from one of council that made that decision was I understood we were making a big enough path that we get equipment in and out if needed.
So, I guess if people aren't in the understanding of how big that path was, we have to be able to get our equipment down that path to do what we have to do, whether that is in the fall, removing equipment off MRER, or whether it be be to get in there to maintain this, because you can't just make a path where everything has to be hand labor, because we said there was no way we would do that. So in defense to all staff and everything, that was a decision made so that we could get our equipment.
Good point. Any other discussion? Anything further out of the report?
I guess I'll just clarify that we're not removing Saskatoon bush, we're falling large poplar trees. And I did a lot of work to make sure that I'm removing ones that I feel are dead or decaying to the point where they could be a risk falling on somebody. I didn't just willy-nilly pick trees to fall.
So it's not a lot of healthy ones. We removed them.
Right.
I have one more question on the report. The Bymore water filter, was that just cleaning mud out of those tanks, or?
Yeah, there was like 8 inches of sludge in the bottom of the tank, so we're not sure. We're watching it to see what happens over the spring. If maybe our well had a slough or something and got pumped up, or what happened, we don't know yet.
Okay.
Yeah, none of the other ones had that problem, but that one, yeah, we had quite a bit of mud come right away.
Okay.
At the Walker well, when we did our county road tour, we noticed there's a propane tank there, but we don't heat it at all.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're not paying for a rental.
We're not.
So the deal made with, which is now Superior Propane, is it would have cost $250 per hour and a pickup fee to move these bullets because they got to empty them first. The truck, the company's not billing us, they're just sitting there. And the truck, when it's empty coming by, will pull out of it and disperse until they're empty, and then they'll move the tanks. So that, yeah, there's not even I think one actually has the conduit going in the building still, but it's not connected on the inside.
Okay, good to know. And I have one further question on the trees planted on the county property.
Yep.
Roughly how many trees did you put in for future use?
Bear with me 2 seconds, I'll tell you. $200 trees, 205 trees this year.
Okay.
So I'll wait 3 to 5 years and then plant another 100 or so, and then I'll get different stages of growth coming.
And roughly how many varieties of trees did you use?
4 this year.
4. Okay.
Poplar, spruce, Saskatoon, and the Japanese lilac.
Yes.
We should, going forward, look at maybe some fruit trees as well. I think municipalities could do well to start looking at maybe some apple trees and stuff, just some different variety. And heaven forbid that we would have a tree growing in a municipality that produced something instead of just looked. Helps the bees, it helps everybody to go along, so, yeah.
Mr. Grover?
The trees you planted before, which my grandkids were in on that, how many of them are still alive?
Which trees are you talking about?
When the old had a thing out at the shop?
None of those are alive.
None.
No, none of those are alive.
They were planted on a really high ridge.
That was planted on a large pile of clay, so they did not survive.
I see, now you're in the thing. And then I had another question on that 40 acres. How come, when are they gonna rip it up and sheet it down to actually, grass that you can hay?
That's a hay blend in there.
Pretty poor.
I can rip it up and farm it again.
Went and looked at it, bid on it. Of course, I'm a counselor, so I don't bid on it. I hay right beside it, but I don't bid on it.
I can rip it up and farm it again.
But I just wondered why you didn't put a bunch of alfalfa with it, if it's going to be a hay.
There was alfalfa in there, but because of the Canada thistle problem we first had on that location, none of the alfalfa made it because I was spraying it out.
Okay. All right, no, I just get this question asked of me, so I just bringing it forward to the board. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? If not, I'll ask for a mover of the administration report. Oh, Mr. Stevens?
We'll move the Ag Service Administration report.
Okay, all in favor? Carried. Okay, now we're moving to 6.1, business arising from the minutes, the strategic plan. And Quentin was asked to bring this back because we had some suggestions for a few additions to the plan.
I should have had them highlighted. There was one about lobbying governments. I added the piece, I have to find it. And emergency preparedness. And I've added those two pieces. I just have to find
The
them.
lobbying one is the very last bullet on actions.
Correct. Page 19.
Mr. Chairman, are you looking for what we were looking for lobbying or just generally?
My understanding was you guys wanted to add pieces on lobbying governments and organizations to further enhance or
And we're doing that. I think we just added it to the
correct.
thing. And one of the ones that I can think of right now was recently when Larry and Les went up to the ledge and talked about the gravel pits with the Alberta Environment, right? That's something that would have came from this particular board, right? So we're doing it. I think we just need to make it a point that this is what are we doing, right? Sometimes we forget to tell people, what we are doing these things.
And if we are doing it, we want it to be outlined in our strat plan, so that
Right.
we really should be all in our strat plan.
Were you looking for specifics, Mr. Bowman?
No, I was just gonna read off what it was I added as per your requests.
This was all from prior discussions.
Yeah.
And it's made the strat plan. And the other piece was on the emergency water. That was, I seen it once.
Yeah, like I said, I should have highlighted it.
And I think it's the last bullet under education and practice conservation. Support goal of rural water stability through water conservation projects. Was that the piece? Because there comes time in drought periods, I guess, where you have to be prepared.
Sorry, I should have had it highlighted. That might have been it.
I think those were two pieces we had asked Quentin to add.
And as far as my notes, that was the only two pieces that you wanted added.
Any other discussion on the strategic plan? Those additions?
If not, that would be something I'll be able to submit to the province then.
Okay, so we should give it our final approval through, or our blessing through this board, right? Yeah, so I need someone to move that be approved. Mr. Clark? Okay, all in favor? And carried. Okay, 6.2 is the G3 tour recap. Most of our board did make it to the tour. It was a great tour, and there's a couple things in the recap I guess we can maybe discuss for those that weren't there. But there was some discussion that we should probably send them a thank you letter for the tour, and there was also some discussion that some of the information they shared that day on their grand opening or lack of grand opening through COVID, that they had about 3 elevators open through the COVID period, and they'd made some sizable charitable donations in lieu of the grand openings. And so we were going to put a piece in County Connection with Mickey's help. Was there any other discussion on the tour that we want? Mr. Grover?
I would love to went to the tour, but we had another meeting that sort of done a little more presence to it than going on tour.
Right.
But I'm going to go out and have a look at it.
You know, it's an impressive facility, and I do like their sign as you approach the facility. It says G3 Stellar County. So that's kind of it's a nice addition to our county for sure. And what impressed me that day too on the tour is how many, the short time we were there, how many trucks come in to load corn out. There was pretty much a steady stream of big trucks pulling corn out of the facility.
What was it, 10 minutes?
Yeah,
I'm pretty impressed.
doesn't take long to load them.
You just bang.
And, yeah, the staff had explained typically it would be barley in this country that they would go out for feed purposes, but with the drought, I mean, the barley crop was pretty light and there wasn't enough feed barley in the area, so they had brought in corn to mate the void for the producers that need feed.
This was one of two that actually sold commodity back into the community.
Marketplace, yeah. Mr. Clark.
I just came back from Calgary on the weekend and they must work very well in the areas where they get their development permits, because there's one that was bare ground the last time I went south Bicycle. And now there is, on Highway 9, there is one where those curves are south of Bicycle. It's full up and running already, so
Yeah, really.
pretty impressive when you see those big facilities go up and you install the construction.
Yeah. They definitely know what they're doing and how to move through the development process, because through our county, I mean, they were easy to work with and there was no snags. They worked well with our planning department and it was sort of mutual on both sides, the kudos, like our planning department applauded them and vice versa. When we were out there, they said Stellar County was very easy to work with in our planning. So they were very happy with that too.
How many employees again did they say?
14 full-time employees and 2 part-time. And most of them live in the Stellar area. There's a couple commute in, but the bulk of them live in the county or the town.
10 hours to load 145 cars.
Yeah,
And the train never stops, 1.4 mile an hour, and it just does a loop and it's done and out.
And they typically will unload the train and load it like in the same train. Like, so it comes in loaded, they put it into their facility and then they load it back up and ship it out. So, man, they got efficiencies. They know what they're doing.
and they were saying with the rail, they have no complaints waiting for the trains.
Yeah.
Because years ago, you used to find out where the train, they couldn't get cars spotted when it was smaller facilities with a few or whatever. But when they're taking full trains, I don't know, that changes the picture, but they have no complaints on the rail service. So I guess if there's no more discussion, we will need, I guess, a motion to send them a thank you letter and I guess a consensus through meeting if we want a piece in our county connection on this new edition with Mr. Grover.
I'll make that motion and then receive it for information. Thank you.
All those in favor? Carried. Okay, new business 7.1, resolutions for the regional ESB conference.
I realize it seems like it's very early in the year, however, it's gonna come up quicker than you think. June, we don't have an Ag Service Board meeting, that's our field visit and meeting of the provincial program supervisors. So just wanted to kind of get the ball rolling, if there's anything you guys wanted to bring up as a hot topic for Regional Ag Service Board Conference, which would be typically October.
And we typically don't meet in July, August with ASB.
Well, I'm not here in August for unless you want to move the meeting date. I'm on vacation then, so the next one will be August, I believe.
Mr. Chairman, so now we did have some discussion around the chemical jug sites and stuff. I know in that discussion, this was brought to us by a resolution, but where are we at on that? Is this something that, I don't know necessarily we need a resolution, but I'd sure like to have a presentation to see what their plans going forward were with it. How does that work? What would we make a request to them?
like to have Clean Farms present something to.
Get it.
And
Well, I mean, I get the program. I totally understand the program, but I'm not 100% sure the rollout is what they expected it to be either.
Mr. Clark and Mr. Stevens.
And if we end up with gaps, where are all these containers gonna end up? That's the biggest issue. Until we know that we've got a system in place that's gonna work, I don't believe we should pull the plug on the other one. You know, there should be a transition period.
The way I understood this, resolution portion, it was leaning towards, requesting help on the education side, that this is the change, these are the new rules. And I think that was the direction we were headed was, yes, the current collection program came through a resolution and they granted that resolution request to kind of roll out this program, but in my opinion, the missing part is the education portion, and that's where they seem to be lacking. It's, all right, here's the new program, and then
So that might be the resolution going forward. Is that what I think that makes sense to me then, yeah. What about you, Quinn? I guess, and the other thing is we don't know what that's the other problem. We don't know what they're maybe they already have something in plans and maybe they already have this all set out, but there's been a little bit of lack of communication.
I'm just playing devil's advocate. I don't want our staff at the disposal sites getting inundated because the broader public has no idea that this change happened. And
then I'm already killing rumors about that.
that's what I'm hoping to avoid. So if there's a provincial change in policy, it would be nice if we could get buy-in for the education portion from the province.
So, Mr. Chairman, I think that is maybe what we need to do is bring a resolution forward to have some clarity and education on this. At least it'll spur the conversation and get that conversation going. Where it goes from there, who knows, but start it with the resolution program. Unfortunately, that's the only mechanism I think that we have.
Before we do a resolution, I'll touch base with Mr. Johnson and see if they do have education pieces that are rolling out that we're missing, or that they haven't rolled out yet, or they plan to roll something out soon.
That would all be part of a background of a resolution. It would be, you're right, that's where we should go, but then if there is nothing, then that would be part of our background to our resolution, absolutely. That'd be the starting point, absolutely. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion that administration investigates a resolution for the education and public awareness program for the rollout of the new Clean Farms chemical jug program. Does that sound right? Marlene, does that work? Yeah.
Is the provincial program is transitioning from having all the containers handled by the municipalities to having them handled by the retailers that sold them. But will they have to be separated? Like, can you return any chemical jug to any retailer, or is it just the ones that stuff that they sell?
But again, we don't know the assumptions. I would have to ask the retailers. But if I'm selling you this herbicide and I have to bring back the garbage and get rid of it, why would I take garbage from that retailer?
Because the most convenient location is going to get everybody's sort of thing.
One jug of Roundup from UFA, and then instead of having to, and then I'll bring them 25 jugs of something else.
Yeah. So that's could be a flaw in the system, and it's like Larry had said, this transition period, we're just sort of getting everybody trained to do the recycling through the municipal sites, and now you got to shift that to a different site. So it's not going to come quickly, maybe. It'll need a period to re-educate. And I can see some hiccups.
I worked in that industry for a bit, and no, why would you take somebody else's container back? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, that's what I was thinking, but for the producers, it's much handier, this current system. You can take them all to one location.
And I got two more questions. I don't think we should go 2 months without a meeting. We could change the date of the meeting in July, but I think we should have a meeting that day, or that month. And another thing is, I wanna know, keep beating on this stuff, resolutions, if there's one coming forward, or what is going on about reclamation of gravel pits.
So,
Are we gonna put one in, or somebody else got one in, or how are we doing that? We've done that once, and then they come and said, yeah, we do 2 a year in the province of Alberta. You know how long they'll be? My great grandkids, they never see them catch up. We have that one that's 20 years old, and basically it should get a check mark and be rolled off. I'd like to see if there isn't one up at the, if there isn't one up at the, in the system as a resolution, I'd like to see it, just you gotta keep putting wood on the fire if you wanna get this done. And the other one is gopher thing, I realize it's probably done. But if nobody complains, nobody puts a resolution forward, they think, oh, well, the federal government says, they're happy with what's going on. And the population that we had this spring is a dead giveaway. They're all over after that hot, dry year last year. Thank you. I think we should do something with those two objects or subjects, whether they be resolutions or if somebody else is doing it, that's fine, to support them. And 2 months without a meeting is unacceptable. Move the date.
Sure. Okay. And before we further discuss those points, Yvette has something.
So the outcry is coming from UFA co-op, right? Because every chemical jug has to be brought back, rinsed out, I think, quickly, right? And put into a tote bag. It's a lot of work. We pick them up in a specially made trailer, and we rinse them. We have staff, and we hazmat them up, and they rinse the jugs, and then we Clean Farm comes and picks them up. I think the outcry to date has been from the larger areas that sell it, not from the producer. The producer will start to complain when he can no longer bring it to the transfer site. So you might want to get it ahead of that, or you may want to work with Clean Farms to see if they would be interested in picking up at our transfer sites, because I do think that what Settler Waste has going on with the county's Ag Service Board is working really effectively. And that might be something that Clean Farm maybe doesn't know about, maybe doesn't understand that they could utilize that service, but I think it could be something that could be explored.
Yeah, that's a good point. I love that point. Mr. Clark?
We went on a road tour here last week and maybe didn't see, but I didn't see any boxes with chemical jugs in. Which impresses me. Years ago, you'd see them and then they'd blow into the headland or they'd be in the ditch. And everybody seems to be handling those responsibility now, which I don't want to lose. So if it is as such as Yvette has said, I would be in full favor if they could pick it up. But I mean, if they can drop it off at that spot, that seems to be working.
Quentin and Justin.
so just a clarification, Curtis Construction, who Clean Farms contracts to come out and either chip, or if you remember from the provincial conference, they're gonna start compacting. They phoned me and said that we understand you're done at the end of 2024. If there's a need, they'll keep coming to Stettler County and getting rid of jugs from our transfer site landfills. If the jugs don't make it to the retailer, if they end up on our transfer site, they won't leave us stranded. What wasn't mentioned is how much it may cost us. So that's something I'll have to have a conversation with, make sure that if this is something you guys want to make sure that we're keeping our producers' land from being jug free, whether it's going to retailer or our transfer sites, I'll have to make some adjustments in a budget if it's going to cost us. But yeah, it's slow. We're starting to make some headway.
Justin?
Just an idea, I'd like to get a little bit of feedback on if if the legal responsibility for taking in these jugs and processing has been put onto the sales, this distribution, and our current process is working, but we're worried about the cost implication if we continue, because we're bearing it when we're not technically legally responsible under these new changes. What's the board's thoughts on approaching our biggest suppliers in the town and see if they're up for a nominal fee for us to continue processing?
Quit talking common sense.
If they don't want to process it, there's storage issues, there's training with WMIS, and plus the educational portion to get everyone to reroute to wherever they purchased it from, and our current process is working. Are we open to having a conversation with the UFA, the co-op locally, and hey, we'll continue taking care of it. This is what it would cost us to do that.
No, I like that, because that kind of goes hand in hand with Yvette's suggestion. Like, if we do it, like, that was the whole first resolution. Municipalities that hung up the job of recycling or taking care of this without any compensation. So that's why they were putting it on to retailers. But if that isn't gonna work, as long as it doesn't hit our budget bottom line, I think Justin's suggestion of that's are very doable. Mr. Glover.
Maybe we should have a recycling thing like you, a pop can where it's $15 or $20 a jug. And it goes right back to the head of the river there where the Monsantos and all those of the things should maybe be kicking in that. And when you get a jug back, the county gets $10, $15 or whatever for the jug.
That was part of the proposal originally, but the contrary to that was that the producer would end up paying the fee, right? They would add it to the jug. And I get it. I mean,
They added to the pop cans already.
I know, and I'm with you. I agree with it, but I'm just telling you, when they put it forward, that was the concern, that they did not want to put it on the back of the producer again.
I got a cheer coming from Monsanto here.
Yeah, no, and I get it, Hunter, but the producer, no, I'm talking the producer who's buying the product, right? So that was the reasoning behind it. I'm not saying that it was right or wrong. I'm just saying that was the reasoning. The producer would get his money back if he brought it back. That system is almost perfect. You create another economic driver for this to work, right? I mean, and it works very well.
My roundup went up just about double this year, so I think $15 to Monsanto or whoever whichever Dow, whoever the chemical supplier is. Sorry, but I don't really, as a farmer,
But the farmer will end up paying it. You'll pay another $15 on that jug. You'll get it back when you bring it back, but that's where it'll be.
Well, it would be, but I work with the pop cans. I think that they get gathered up quite a bit more than they used to. Okay, moving on.
Just a note on the pop cans, I live on a highway, and there's lots of pop and beer cans, when I run a tractor, it's amazing how many still are thrown out in the ditch. But, we're talking here about taking your pop cans back to Sobeys, that doesn't work. They're still recyclers or still, certified depots where you can take that stuff back to, so in order to make this work, I still think we need to look at alternate spots.
Yeah.
Well, I think probably the number one place to start is with Clean Farms. Why not? We can contact them, either can phone them or we can write them a letter, ask them to attend a meeting either by Zoom or in person and talk about it. Maybe that's why the drive is for Clean Farm to pick this up, is that they are charging a recyclable charge and Clean Farm is hoping to protect or to collect it to further their ideas and projects.
Yeah. Mr. Mary.
I just want to talk about Mr. Grover's 2 points, other two as well. I think we need to give an administration direction of what we're doing here instead of just talking about it. So the Richardson ground squirrel situation, I think if we could have administration bring something back, is that what you were thinking, Mr. Grover, to find out where we're at on that?
Well, I want to know where we're at. There's no sense, I think you have to, both those things I brought up, you have to keep pressure on them. Like when I hear that there's only the gravel pits too, they're gonna do 2 this year?
And if,
Boy, I'm gonna get a job doing that.
so I think Mr. Clark and Mr. Stolberg both have a little bit they can add to that about the meeting with Alberta Environment about our gravel pits as well. What was the consensus there?
Well, they basically told us that they would look into this. They were interested, especially when we mentioned third party, because that it shuffles the service, but to the municipalities, at least it allows us to move those forward. So I don't know, we haven't seen anything. There's been conversation, but there's been no,
I think it, right now, from what they told us, it requires a change in legislation. So they were willing to bring that forward to the fall session and see what they could get done. Unfortunately, last week, everything's been put on hold.
And the other one, when you had the meeting down in Bymore, the interesting fact that was brought up, I can't remember who brought it up, but you told me they said put it down to ground first.
Starland County they found it so much simpler before you open a gravel pit, lease it out as farmland, have someone break it, farm it. So then when you go back to reclaim it, you don't have to reclaim it into grass. It's so much easier to reclaim back into cultivated.
Just I find that a very innovative way of doing it, even if you cultivated it for the first 2 years previous, who cares what it grows?
But one of the other points about the meeting in Bymore was that own your own gravel pits.
Yeah.
Because we're having hell because we're leasing. We had leased those ones, now we own our own. But that's where we're getting hell from, where the rest of them looked at us like, you don't own your own gravel pits?
That was a change we made, and it's been a good one. So.
Mr. Grover?
I'm not farming them, guys. Because there's rocks right to the top of them. Sometimes somebody's idea of good idea isn't maybe a good idea. But I think we should keep pushing on those 2 items. There's no other way that they're gonna get cleaned up.
So I would think you would put administration.
Yeah. Send it to that.
And I think that's why Quentin wants to start this discussion early, because if we leave it too late, we're not gonna be ready for the deadline of resolutions. Quentin and Ernie.
So just for clarification, you want me to look into see if someone else has a gravel pit resolution and if someone else is looking into a strychnine resolution?
Or if the strictline's still on the books, like you can't bring a resolution forward if they're still working on it, because it was just last year that we did that strychnine one, wasn't it?
Yeah. Producers are allowed to use it for another year.
I'm thinking that it's still on the books as a resolution with them, and they leave it on the books for, is it 3 years till it runs its term?
I don't remember if it's 3 years or 5 years.
5 years, whatever it is.
Well, I think in 5 years, there's an infestation that you couldn't
Just double check.
live with.
Mr. Kendrick?
Yes, you do have to be creative on what you're gonna be farming in there, because it does also some of this native grassland. The seed, in order to get it, it is very difficult in order to get it. To seed it back to native afterwards, if you had a farmer doing it, whereas ourselves, if we open it up, we can just put it back to cropland when we are done.
That is the advantage of starting with cropland. Yeah. So, I think the direction was of the gravel pit and the gopher poison, you're investigating those, and also you're getting in contact with Clean Farms to get more clarification. Okay, is there anything more to this resolutions discussion? Quentin, is there anything you needed more on that for today?
No, that's good for me to go on.
If I may, we're seeking, I kind of got a bit of clarification that we likely can't submit a resolution for the strychnine at this point. And we're kind of seeking more information for other options with Clean Farms and our producers on the recycling bit. I'm reading the room, and I think there's a general consensus on this gravel pit reclamation that if there is not a resolution, I think the room would fully support going that direction if we're seeking more information on the other two.
I think your read is right. I think this board definitely wants some changes to the gravel pit reclamation. And resolution will be our only option probably to get that message through.
So then, just for clarification, because they will ask, what is it you want to clean up in the gravel pit act, or the speed of the process, or?
Main thing is time.
I mean, optimum is, oh, sorry.
No, you're up.
You're up first.
Optimum is the timeline. If we can get Alberta Environment to actually come out and do this in a timely fashion or agree to a time limit.
Do you have an idea on a timely fashion or a time limit? What would you think is
I would think that 2 years is more than reasonable. Like, I don't know, you want it worded in such a way that you can get them to agree to it. If you make it too short, you may get pushback, but the alternative to bringing in a third party, I mean, I like it as a last ditch effort. I'm just not sure how to word that in a resolution where, yeah, this is your responsibility, Alberta Environment. We want you to commit to doing this within a timely manner. If not, if for some reason you can't, we want the ability to get a third-party inspection so we can get those dealt with.
Mr. Chairman, this isn't just for us either.
No.
This is an industry issue that's going across the board. You talk to multiple industries out there, they're having a hard time getting in the certificates, so.
Mr. Grover.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Yeah, I agree with that, but at 20 years and $50,000 later on that one lease is not a timeline. And, it's not the only one we have, it's the worst one we have. And anything over 3 years is ridiculous because an oil lease, they clean it up, they inspect it, and that's the end of it. So why should those gravel pits not be on the same, once we've got it prepared, they should come and have a look.
So I think that's,
If it passes, they show in their John Henry that it's got a certificate, and that's the end of it.
that is the key piece of this resolution.
And if they have to, I have no problem with a private entity doing it. What would be the difference? If they're certified to do it, what would be the difference if the government, but to me, when I heard that there was 2 gonna get done in Alberta, that's the point of ridiculous.
Mr. Gender.
We got a pile to get done. We got 5 or 6 of these.
Quentin, if you could possibly reach out to see like what's happening in the oil industry. In the first year when they reclaim it, they have to then provide a 1-year growth on it. So if we can have something comparable to that, this is one industry that can do it quite enough.
Well, the biggest thing, Mr. Gender, is to get the inspectors even to look at them. It seems.
Well, the oil industry, you can submit a report based on a certified inspector. And that's who what Alberta Environment reviews, whereas we have to have a government. Right now, that was one of the biggest questions we asked, is if we could have that same.
And like the meeting we had with the environment minister that Yvette, Larry and Andrew and I attended, I mean, they were quite receptive, the minister was, to some changes. And he did mention sending it through the red tape reduction ministry too. Maybe like there was no pushback. I mean, our idea was, our concern, I mean, was taken seriously. But the biggest thing is, I mean, we all know these players can change, he may not have that portfolio forever or whatever. And so I think resolution is what we need to do to make sure it keeps in the forefront of government. Mr. Bond.
Mr. Clark, when you asked about using a private inspector for oil versus municipalities having to go through the province for inspector, what was their answer?
Basically, it was due to the act, then that's what would have to be reviewed
To remove that piece that it would have to be a
remove that
provincial
piece to allow-
inspector.
to allow it to be. It is allowed within the act for oil sites to be reviewed by that third party, but it is for gravel pits.
So maybe we should somehow incorporate that in the resolution to speed their process up, or were they already looking at doing that?
That's just from what we suggested, but as Matt said, it would be fall session earliest if it happens because of what changes there was last week.
And they work through the AER. And it's the AER that finds a consultant and gets reclamation ready for Alberta Environment to approve.
But yeah, you're right. But those are the 2 points we want to bring forward is changing the act to allow that and so that it's within whatever time period we select, a couple of years or whatever.
2 years.
Okay, anything further on the resolution piece? No, I'll ask someone to accept that for information. Mr. McKay? I will do so. Okay, thank you, all in favor? Carried. 7.2, budget. What?
All right. So the next here is my request for decision for budget, capital purchase plan. My idea here is to present my capital purchase plan as a whole, so you guys can understand what I have initially set up to help us kind of speed up budget presentations when we're dealing with council, because board is council and council is board. We might as well have the in-depth talk here. So when it's time to present the budget to council, I can speed my piece up, giving council time to deal with other fish that need to be dealt with. We can deal with egg stuff here, generally speaking, right? Council still has to pass it, but the idea is to try and get some more feedback and have you guys understand the capital purchase plan for egg services.
This makes sense to hash out the egg stuff first, so we have a understanding when we go to budget. Looking for an egg. So you've gone a long way on your chart already.
Yes, so I have, Yvette, correct me if I'm wrong, we're supposed to have a 10-year capital purchase plan, right?
Right.
I have a 20-year capital purchase plan. I'm going out further, trying to make sure I can keep the agriculture portion of the budget from having huge waves in our capital purchase, trying to smooth out the big ticket items and then work in smaller equipment around that. But I'm also trying to show the longevity of our equipment over all of our pieces, everything from small equipment up to the management of the fleet, the vehicles.
Oh, Mr. Grover?
I think in theory, that's a great idea, but if we go back and depends what the council of the day, whether I'm here or whether I'm not, come back and say, well, we don't have enough, you're gonna have to cut 20% off your budget, then we gotta come back, but this is a good template, I guess,
Absolutely. There's always going to be tweaks because of that, right? But at least we can kind of see.
as long as you understand that.
Yep, absolutely. So I've actually had this in place since I've been here, since I started in 2010. I think it's 2010. Anyways, everything from cattle scale, which was purchased before my time, what I've done with some of those pieces is kind of show when I think their life is done. And as they get close, we may be able to push those out further. Some of the other ticket items we're looking at, like, for example, A27, that's the homemade field sprayer we built in 2014. The idea behind that was it was going to last 15 years because of the rough terrain it was intended to go over. It's holding up far better than I thought. So
Some things we can still tweak, which I have is 2037.
Mr. Grove, or Mr. Gender, and then Mr. Stevens.
One of these, like, I'm looking at one of the capital purchases, it's one where the 5,500. On the second page, number 273. And also look at another one. It's a very high capital purchase. So I guess I'm kind of wondering, okay, when do we start putting something in aside for that? So when the year does come, that there's gonna be some funds put aside.
I'm glad you asked.
We've been doing that for a long
I've been
time.
doing that for a long time. I have, and I can't use the word savings account, but I've created a savings account, capital reserve. And that's in my budget notes, but every pickup truck, I put away $1,500 per year. Every piece of equipment, like the side-by-side, the boat, the field sprayer, I think I put $1,000 aside. The 2 roadside spray trucks, I believe I put $2,500 per year aside. So in total, I think, and that would be a Krista question, I think I'm putting about $32,000 or $34,000 per year into capital reserves, so that when it's time to purchase something, it's not such a big hit to the bank account. I've been doing that since I started.
Like, I find that those are kind of small ticket items. The ones that I'm looking at, it's 125,000 and 118,000 on the same year in 2023. So have we already been putting some funds aside for that?
Yeah, I could purchase one right now and not affect cash flow. So, and you were talking about 273, which is a Dodge 5500. The replacement value is 125,000, because the idea is to go to another mid-class truck like my Unit 277, the 2015 Kenworth. It's a mid-class hydraulic brake, single axle truck, class 5 license, but I can haul more water, which means it's out spraying longer instead of traveling for water. So my idea is to match that truck again and replace 273, which is a smaller truck, which would go into the fleet in a different spot, but no longer be a roadside spray truck. The other option, the ideal option, would be to try and do like MD of Wainwright does it quite often, Vulcan does it. When you guys say yes, replace 273, I would try and sell that truck as a whole to another county, a private land spray person, whoever, try and sell it to get some income. If it doesn't work that way, sell the spray system off, keep the truck. It goes into the fleet in a different spot, hauling my side-by-side, or making a work truck for hauling our dump trailer, whatever it is. It becomes class somewhere else. But I would like to get another bigger mid-sized truck for roadside spray to keep them on the road longer instead of traveling for water.
So you have them both down for replacement next year, 2023?
272, 277.
No, so 273, the entire truck is a replacement at 125,000. And then 277 is 25,000. I replaced just the spray system so that those 2 trucks always match. So that if Mr. Grover and Mr. Stevens are my spray truck operators, and Mr. Steven is sick, I can throw Mr. Grover in Mr. Stevens' truck and I can take Mr. Grover's. He has no problem driving that truck because it operates exact same. The spray systems, when I replace one truck completely, I replace the spray system on the other truck. And I have those 2 trucks, well, they were 10 years apart, to try and offset that big chunk of change, because that is my big ticket item. Really, that's the besides buying a tractor, that would be the most expensive piece right now that Ag Services would buy is a roadside spray truck.
I'd just like clarification on the solar pumping unit. What is the use for that we have?
It was a demo piece, so if you had cows, you could rent. The idea was to rent for free, always. You would take my solar pumping unit to your dugout and off-site water your cattle to get an understanding how it keeps your dugout clean and you have cleaner water for your cows to drink out of.
Help repair the riparian areas around some of it.
And the riparian area doesn't get affected by cattle always going into your dugout,
Good idea if you can afford it.
and not a very big hit. I could name one person who's ever borrowed the solar pumping system. Mr. Blake Chapman was the only one that ever used it.
So it looks like you've been putting away $68,800 a year and is scheduled to do that for the next 4 years.
Okay, so I was wrong. It's higher than I thought. I forgot about that. He cut his budget. I forgot about that 2%,
Easily do.
agriculture stuff. That was 34,000 as well, so.
Right, so he's putting away money to have it on hand before.
I like the program. I like how you do that. That makes all the sense in the world to me. That's how it works very well.
Just for clarification, the idea behind this pumping unit is good, but did you just say that, it's only been used once?
Probably not something we're gonna.
Well, no, it got used by one person every summer until it was time to replace parts, and I haven't because he even quit using it. He bought his own system instead of coming to get ours. Nobody wants to use it.
That's something we can put in the auction sale.
The heck
Maybe
out
I
of it.
think advertisement probably get some writers,
We can try advertising it again.
especially a year like last year.
Well, it just lists that we're replacing it right away, and if that's the kind of use we've been getting out of it, I mean, if it's broadly used amongst a lot of our egg producers, I don't have a problem with it. If it's repeatedly used year after year by the same person, I'm not sure if that's something we should invest in.
I guess by not having a cost there, that might indicate that it wasn't looked at being, it sells a replacement date, but not look at being.
Correct. The money value is gone, which means it would just
Good.
expire. It would just
Good.
disappear.
Budget discussion? Okay, Mr. Grover is receiving this for information.
Do we want to receive for information?
There's an RFD attached.
There is an RFD.
Yeah, there is, we'll vote on it.
Okay, Mr. Grover makes a motion to approve the capital purchase plan as presented. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Mr. Bowman, I like that. I think it works well, and I am happy with that.
Okay, no correspondence or informations. 11.1 PCP Act review.
So this is from Brenda Knight. She submitted.
So when I'm reading this, is this something that would be, also will affect the Richardson ground squirrel strychnine stuff? When they're talking pest control?
No, because strychnine is federally controlled through PMRA, Pest Management Regulatory Authority. This is, well, I guess it could.
I'll be honest, I don't know well enough where the strychnine comes in. I know that it comes in through the regulatory body of
Health Canada.
Health Canada, so it must,
Yeah.
I'm thinking we should all be going on here, and this should be something that if you're worried about gophers, here's somewhere we should be making a note of.
That's not just go, we look at last year with the flea beetles and grasshoppers and areas and stuff, that will all part of this too, is your pesticides. You know, spraying for that was changed, so.
Yeah, this is rodenticide, insecticide, fungicide, herbicide,
Is it herbicide?
one more, but
Is herbicide in there too?
it's classified as a pesticide. Yeah. So right from your 2,4-Ds through your strychnines and fox toxins, right, that's all there.
There's a lot of urban or non-ag type people who want to ban all chemical and yet they fully don't understand some of it's definitely needed if they want to eat. Because
That being said, if you looked at, how do I word this? There were places where people used to use weed and feed in their front yard, right, which was a herbicide and a fertilizer. And they would kill their dandelions and give a good dose to the grass for fertilizer. And then the next thing they do, because it was a fertilizer, is they'd water the heck out of their lawn, washing that all down to the storm drain and away. So, and this is the same body that removed weed and feed from the stores in 2007 or 8, whenever that was, for that reason, right? Because people didn't understand how to use that product and they were washing it away. It should be 2 applications. Spray for your whatever weed is in your lawn. Let it sit and do its job. Fertilize. Yeah, water it in, don't water it off. Give your lawn enough water to soak it in, not till runoff. Never should you water till runoff.
showing up your water bill. Mr. Gender?
Is strychnine used in anything else?
In Canada?
Yes. Or anywhere that you think?
Well, in India for sure, because that's where it's grown.
It's actually a chemical process in gold mining as well.
I didn't know that. I don't know where else, as far as like any kind of animal control where strychnine is used.
So in Canada, it is only used for ground squirrel.
Was, yeah.
It's a plot against the West.
Just trap your gophers and send them east.
There's
Make
no
sure you
boats
send
in
breeding
Ontario.
pairs. Pardon?
We have a gopher combo?
Yeah.
So as an ASB board, I mean, there is the digital letter that us group is encouraging to send in. There's 2 options on the digital letter. You can send it in as a farmer or you can send it in as support of agriculture. So is that something we would like to do as a board or?
I think it's
I
important
see
that
it.
you do, Mr. Chairman, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Guess it keeps you in the latest news and activities, basically. Well, Mr. Stevens?
Would it be worthwhile to get Nikki to throw this up on our public notices, or farmers could log in and participate? Help advertise that it's happening.
Yeah, I think it's good to keep ahead of the game. I mean,
So, Mr. Stevens, would you make a motion that we do both, that we send a letter and then also put it on our public work?
I will make that one, yes.
That'd be a good motion.
any further discussion? All in favor of Mr. Stevens' motion? It's carried.
Just for clarification, what do you want added in the letter? Or just submit the digital letter they have?
I think Nikki is well versed in writing letters. She, I trust her abilities. Make it sound good. Make us look good. I know it's hard work, but make us sound good, Nikki. Thank you.
This is important for everyone to know or understand, I guess, that in order to feed the population, you do need the use of some of these. I mean, they have to be managed safely. You do always need some of these products. Okay, moving on. our next meeting date, just select a date. And Quentin, you said August 24th doesn't, is that the date that does not work for you?
Well, that's the one that does work for
Well,
me.
that does work for you. Oh, okay.
I will talk with municipal planning and see what works with them as well. And if I can get things timed out enough, maybe she can suggest a date and we can have both meetings on the same day again in July. I'll look at my calendar, she'll look at hers, and we'll give you a couple of dates or something to pick from.
We've done that in the past where we moved both meetings so that they still land on the same day.
You need a motion for that? That's.
Sure.
I'll make a motion that Ag Service Board and MPC find a suitable date in July to have the meeting. And forward it to the board.
July or August?
July.
Oh, July 1st, okay.
July, so you're not missing two
Oh,
months in
okay.
a row.
MPC doesn't take the summer off, so unfortunately.
They'll be there, we just have to juggle them.
Maybe start a new trend.
Yeah, right.
Oh, July.
Legislation that has to be done, I'm sorry.
July, that's somewhere. Okay, that'll be up to them and that's my motion.
Okay,
Grover's motion is to set a meeting date for July that works for NPC as well. All in favor? And carried.
Why wouldn't we keep it the regular third Wednesday of July? I'm on vacation. It's all about you. Well, it's about my kid. I'm coaching him.
Okay.
13.1, the FRED.
Add more letters. So just a reminder, the June Agricultural Service Board meeting is our field visit. So you'll meet, for those who've been on before, you'll meet Kelly Jackson, our liaison. She's gonna come do the audit with Doug McCauley, and I'm unsure at this point if Alan, and I can never pronounce his last name properly, Alan Eflin from Lethbridge. He came last time as well. Those would be the ones that are gonna come do the field audit. So we'll still meet at service board time. They'll ask you some questions. You got a chance to ask them some questions. And then I basically show them the programs we roll and how things are working and any issues we have. They just want to see how we're spending their money. Every 5 years it happens. So it's just a reminder that still come in June 22. It just won't be a regular Ag Service Board meeting. It'll be more of a question and answer again.
And we typically, sorry, Mr. Chairman.
I was just gonna ask, how long will you require ASB board for that, do you think?
Roughly an hour and a half
Or not?
is what they had said.
We don't.
Depending on how many questions you guys have, but from the past, you guys haven't had a whole lot of questions for them. They kind of explain themselves fairly well, but
We typically don't do the field visits.
no.
No, because it's every 5 years, you don't remember what we did last time.
right,
So the way the day will start is they'll be out at the shop between 7 and 8. I introduce them to my staff. They show all their government regulations. We go through some paperwork. I show them some minutes, some of our policies and whatnot. I show them the equipment we have to do weed control, pest control. They look at herbicide storage, make sure I'm up to code, make sure that I've got the proper registration and vending licenses posted, all that kind of stuff. And then we will come in here, they'll meet you guys, we have question and answer, have lunch, and then we go out and find my crews, what they're doing, and they kind of see how things work. I take them to past weed notices and show them how it worked or didn't work. I take them to issues that we have. And
We don't have any issues, so where are you going to take them?
I'm gonna take them to Buffalo Lake and show them the common buckthorn.
no,
What about the gravel pit wreck for me?
Well, that'll be on there,
yeah,
Maybe stop by that one when you're up
Yeah.
there.
for sure. So yeah, just those kind of issues, right? So gravel pit will be a huge one.
I don't think it's gonna work, but I'll show them maybe some Richardson ground squirrel problems we're still having, right? Because of strychnine being removed. You know, I have in the 22 kilogram and 9 kilogram bags of Rosol, and then I have another one called Ground Force. They're a lot like mouse bait. There's multi-feed bait station stuff. I've got that first.
Feed them up and then they have a heart attack because they have too much.
Pretty well, yeah, you fill them to fat, yeah, yeah.
It doesn't work, that's garbage, that stuff.
You know, and then I take them and show them if they've got questions, I'll take them. We don't go on the river, but I'll take them to a bridge and show them some control we've done for them, that type of stuff.
They basically want to see that their money's being well spent.
Yep.
Well managed. Yeah. Okay, so they're not ready to see our board until 10:30, so I just want to note that in the minutes, that the next meeting will be on June 23rd at 10:30 a.m. Is that-
22.
Second, unless they move the service board ahead of it.
So, you know, technically that's your next board meeting would be June 22nd, I guess.
June 22nd, right?
Next meeting date.
Okay. Do we need to accept that for
Information, I suppose the change is changing the time. Mr. Grover moves to accept for information, all in favor? Carried. Now, number 14 in camera, there was an in camera piece, so we'll have someone move us in camera. Mr. McKay?
So what do you want first?